Hello, this is the news on NTA International. I am Charles Alpha, and my sign language interpreter is Franklin Efe. First, the headlines. Chadian government boosts security along its border with Sudan to control influx of Sudanese refugees. Russia and China signed new bilateral agreements. And the federal government reaffirms its commitment to the attainment of universal health coverage in Nigeria. Russia and China have signed new agreements in defiance of Western criticism, with Russian Prime Minister Mikhail, the highest-ranking Russian official to visit Beijing since the Ukraine war began. The reports. Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin said sensational pressure from the West was taking Russia-China ties to an unprecedented high as officials from the two countries signed a set of agreements on trade and sports cooperation. The Prime Minister's visit comes after Russia and China reacted furiously to the Group of Seven Nations weekend declarations that singled both countries out on a range of issues, including Ukraine. With the war in Ukraine in its second year and Russia increasingly feeling the weight of Western sanctions, Moscow is leaning on China for support. Trade between the two nations reached a record $190 billion last year, according to Chinese custom data. Mishustin also met with Premier Li Qiang on Wednesday, saying that relations between Russia and China are at an unprecedented high level following a grand welcoming ceremony outside Beijing. He said, given the desire to jointly respond to challenges which is associated with increased turbulence in the international arena. Charles. Japan on Wednesday held a ceremony marking its planned donation of about 100 military vehicles to Ukraine as Tokyo seeks to provide equipment that can be of broader military use than its earlier shipments of helmets and hazmat suits. In a ceremony at the Defense Ministry, at which two half-ton trucks were on display, Japanese Vice Defense Minister Toshiro Ino handed a document to Ukrainian Ambassador Sergei Kosonsky, listing the three types of vehicles included in the donation. We hope the invasion ends as soon as possible and peaceful daily lives return, Ino said. We will provide as much support as we can. The donation, which also includes 30,000 food rations, comes as Japan's government is seeking to ease its military equipment transfer policy under a new national security policy that allows its military a greater offensive role in a major break from its post-World War II self-defense only principle. While other countries have provided Ukraine with tanks, missiles and fighter jets, Japan has limited its donations to non-lethal equipment because the transfer policy prohibits the provision of lethal weapons to countries at war. Japan has provided Ukraine with bulletproof vests, helmets, gas masks, hazmat suits, small drones and food rations since Russia's invasion began last year. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida pledged the truck to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky when they met in Hiroshima on Sunday on the sidelines of the G7 summit. Now, the Chadian government says it is making efforts to boost security along its border with Sudan as a growing influx of Sudanese refugees fleeing the fighting in their country is expected. Adebola Brookslands on the now reports.
Kufrun is an eastern village of Chad on the common border with Sudan, and it has given rise to a lot of concerns in recent days. United Nations said at least one refugee was killed by a rocket strike on a camp for Sudanese refugees in the village last week. A local resident, Suleiman Isa, said the situation has escalated.
People are fleeing and crossing over to this side. Some of the attackers fired a rocket at the people who are fleeing. Fortunately, it did not explode. It got lodged into the ground. If it had exploded, it would have caused a lot of damage in this town.
We are very scared. Even though it's quiet across the border, we don't know when it will flare up again and how it will affect us.
A senior official of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said, so far, those who have borne the brunt of the spillover of violence from the conflict in Sudan are the most vulnerable.
Not far away from the border, in a town inside Chad, a few days ago we had an incident when one refugee was killed. So it is a huge concern that we have.
As Kofrun is one of the 27 entry points along Sudan-Chad border for the refugees, the Chadian government says it's doing its best to secure those entry points. The Sudanese Doctors Union said civilian death toll from the conflict between the two rival military factions in Sudan had climbed to about 863. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said over 1 million people, including refugees and returnees, have fled Sudan to Chad since the military conflict broke out on April 15. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
The Nigeria-Guinea Bissau relations has been of great benefit to both countries, with Africa being the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. Available statistics has shown that in 2021, Nigeria had a large net trade with Guinea-Bissau in the export of foodstuffs to the tune of $638,000. Vegetable products recorded up to $147 and miscellaneous $47,100. Recently, President Muhammadu Buhari visited Guinea-Bissau, where he promised Nigeria would promote democratic norms and principles on the African continent. The Nigerian mission also organized Nigeria-Bissau Business Forum to improve the trade relations between the two countries. And now joining us live from Bissau, the capital of Guinea-Bissau, via Zoom, is the Nigerian ambassador to Guinea-Bissau, John Usanga. Ambassador, thank you for joining us on NTA International.
Thank you for having me. Good evening from Bissau.
All right, thank you so much. Now, how would you describe the trade volume between Nigeria and Guinea-Bissau?
Well, I would say that no matter the figure that we see, that is still at a very low ebb, because what is happening in Bissau is Nigerians trading at the informal sector, by which I mean that we have private petty traders and business people who deal in spare parts and textiles materials. That is thriving, but the formal trade sector is at a very low ebb. Of course, as you know, these products that are being sold by Nigerian petty traders, they are not products of Nigerian origin. They are imported from other places and sold here. So we can't really say that there's any meaningful trade relationship between Nigeria and Guinea-Bissau as of now.
Okay, now since your appointment, what have you done to improve trade and investment between the two countries?
Yeah, upon my assumption here, I noticed the huge potentials that are available in the country, and I found out that Nigerians did not even know that it's a country like Guinea-Bissau with such huge potentials in ECOWAS. So I immediately commenced action to kickstart the Nigeria-Guinea-Bissau Business Forum, which was aimed to bring together businesses of the two countries and to create an enabling environment on the part of the two governments to push for the next level of businesses. But I realized that wasn't enough. So together with a group of ambassadors of African origin, we came together to, put on a trade and investment forum, the first ever in the country to be held. With the support of the UNDP, we were able to put that program together, and there was a lot of response from Nigerians who participated, in that trade and investment forum in December 2022. Many Nigerian entrepreneurs graced the occasion, and this has translated in, in a few of them indicating interest in setting up businesses, setting up businesses in the country. And I believe that in the next few months, we are going to have another forum, and that this Bissau Rising, as we deemed it, has really created a good environment for economic diplomacy to be deepened, and the two countries working together to ensure that we reap mutual benefits from our bilateral relations.
Okay, now, Ambassador, just looking at the figures from here, Nigeria export to Guinea-Bissau was $831.76,000 in 2021. What is the position of things as of now?
Yeah, that figure, as far as two countries trading is concerned, is meaningless as far as I'm concerned. If you could excuse the use of that word, meaningless, because this is you're talking about two countries in ECOWAS region who have access to each other without hindrances. I'm talking about ECOWAS protocols. So Nigerians readily have indicated interest and their readiness to export more of our products to Guinea-Bissau, and the export is expected to receive a very huge push when the business forum takes place and the entrepreneurs of the two countries come together and agree to work. So besides that, I'm pushing for setting up of a binational commission. We are working on it, and the grant of a portion of land exclusively to the Nigerian community who are prepared to build a state-of-the-art market of Nigerian origin to showcase Nigerian products. The future looks very bright as far as I'm concerned, and I think that we are on good course on this.
Okay, now let me take you back again. When you said meaningless, does the figure exceed your expectations or below what you expect?
Far below the expectations, far below expectations. We are talking about just thousands of dollars. Whereas in the ECOWAS region alone, you are talking about people setting up businesses freely, ECOWAS protocols on trade and investment, freedom of movement, freedom of enterprise. And so we have not explored these potentials. And we have a country that has so much to offer Nigerians, but Nigerians are not taking advantage of these opportunities. We won't leave it to other people this time around. I guarantee that.
Okay, now, so with the pictures you have painted, what should Nigerians look forward to on the trade relations between Nigeria and Guinea-Bissau with the new administration, coming on board on May 29th this year?
I would say Nigerians should look forward to a very robust bilateral trade relations between us and Guinea-Bissau through investment in the country and export of our products. Most of the products exported from outside our region should cease to be brought into this country.
Hello.
So our next level of our trade relations promises to be very, very huge. I had an interactive session with the president of the Abuja branch of NASIMA, with other branches of NASIMA in the country, and exposed to them the huge investment potentials of the country. They have expressed their intention to undertake an exploratory visit to see things for themselves in the next few months. With this, I am sure that we're going to have a very robust trade and investment relations in the coming months. So things look bright for the incoming government.
Okay, now, so how is the Nigerian mission in Cape Verde thinking outside the box?
Thinking outside the box, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult thing for us to run two missions on a budget of one. The financial impact, of course, on our pockets can best be imagined. We cannot afford a groundsman, as it were, because of the huge expenses involved in, traversing, going between Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde to take care of our consular matters, because of the cost involved. However, we have consistently made representations to the government to at least create a consular post in Cape Verde, Praia, the capital, to reciprocate the gesture of Cape Verde setting up a full embassy in Nigeria, and to help us deliver more effectively on our mandate. Notwithstanding the setback, we are hopeful that things will get better we have a very good working relationship with the Nigerian Welfare Association there, who are really helping us in some of our consular activities. And then we also have excellent relationship with the host authorities. With these relationships, we are able to deliver on our, diplomatic mandate without having to complain too much.
All right.
So we are doing that, but the setting up of the consular post will do better.
All right. Thank you very much for talking to us on NTA International.
Thank you very much for having me. Good evening.
All right, the Nigerian ambassador to Guinea-Bissau there talking to us. We'll now take a quick break now. The news continues shortly. Please do stay with us. Also, health care coverage in Nigeria. The Presidential Health Reform Committee set up in September 2021 to develop a health sector reform program for Nigeria has presented its reports and bills to President Muhammadu Buhari. Among the various recommendations is the call for the setting up of a monitoring unit in the office of the President for successful implementation of the program. Our State House correspondent Jide Nifade reports.
Title of this little book, There Is Always Room, and that is exactly what this administration is displaying, with Nigerians waking up every morning to new things coming from government for the betterment of the people. At this valedictory meeting of the Federal Executive Council, there was still room for the swearing in of 7 federal commissioners of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Of greater importance is the presentation to President Muhammadu Buhari, the final report on proposals for the health sector reform program. The presentation was by the Presidential Health Reform Committee, headed by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo.
The committee received memoranda from members of the public. We also took extensive proposals from committee members and the organizations that they represent, including the National Assembly, state governors, unions in the health sector, and the private sector. This was followed by a retreat to brainstorm on several policy options which arose from the submissions.
Some of the recommendations are on health governance and leadership, human resources for health, health financing, and health service delivery structure. It also include health infrastructure and pharmaceutical systems, as well as pandemic preparedness and response.
Achieving universal health coverage for Nigerians is really the essence of this report. This is to be realized through the prioritization of government spending on health and boosting of per capita health expenditure by scaling up the national health insurance system as the preferred public financing arrangement. This approach is one where the national or state health insurance authorities would benefit from the general budget transfers from the relevant federal or state governments. The report therefore recommends healthcare guarantees for all Nigerians registered on the National Social Register.
The Vice President speaks further on some of the recommendations.
The committee is fully aware of the governance and institutional arrangements of a reform program. We have proposed a number of institutional changes, including the establishment of the National Tertiary Health Institutions Commission, whose function will be similar to the National Universities Commission, and the National Quality and Healthcare Standards Commission. In view of obvious funding constraints, the committee hesitated to recommend new institutions. However, on the balance, we agreed that for us to make progress with our human capital agenda, these institutions were essential. Other recommendations vary from human resource in health, issues such as brain drain, to the expansion of access to primary healthcare services, medical tourism, and mobilization or leveraging private capital for health investments, as well as their role in expanding the supply of health workers for Nigeria in the medium and long term.
The ground is now prepared and the ball now falls on the doorstep of the incoming administration to achieve a universal healthcare coverage in Nigeria. And how soon this will be, time will tell. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
As President Buhari tidies up his desk to bow out next week, Monday, he is commending the Nigerian armed forces for their efforts in stemming insecurity in the country. That's not all. He is charging them to remain resolute in the quest to surmount other emerging security threats across the country. The president did all this in Abuja at a regimental dinner organized in his honor by the defense headquarters.
Evening was cool and calm, and the event, a dinner in honor of President Muhammadu Buhari. This is in appreciation of his unflinching support to the armed forces in the area of procurement of needed hardware as well as provision of improved working environment.
Mr. President.
Addressing the gathering, the Chief of Defense Staff General Lucky Irabo commended the president for his political will that brought massive support to the military, leading to reduced security threats in the country.
We are proud of you, Mr. President. Indeed, very proud of your leadership and parallel support to the armed forces and other stakeholders within the defense and security sector. Indeed, we are confident that when the annals of Nigeria's military history are opened for introspection, the name and legacy of our Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, will be most favorably annotated. Permit me to use this medium to reiterate that the armed forces of Nigeria will continue to be committed to ensuring the peace and stability of your dear country.
To express my sincere appreciation.
For the CNC, there was no better time than now to appreciate the selflessness of the Nigerian armed forces in the past 8 years. He charged them to remain resolute in the quest to further secure the country.
Please permit me to use this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the officers and soldiers of the armed forces of Nigeria for their unwavering loyalty, hard work, dedication, and selfless service to our beloved nation. I am fully aware of all your sacrifices and commitments in tackling the myriad security challenges and your contributions to the successful elections in our country. However, until the issue of insecurity is surmounted, much more is still desired from the armed forces of Nigeria.
The double-barreled event also provided an avenue for the inauguration of the Armed Forces Officers' Mess behind Lugi Barracks in Abuja. The dinner is part of a week-long activities preparatory to the May 29 handing over ceremony. In Abuja, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
And on the 29th of March 2023, the Federal Executive Council approved the liquidation of top priority judgment debts and general debts incurred by ministries, departments and agencies of government. President Muhammadu Buhari has now written to Senate seeking legislative approval for the resolution. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Unko now reports.
For the resolution of the National Assembly.
Plenary commenced with President of the Senate Ahmad Lawan reading executive communication from President Muhammadu Buhari. The letter seeks approval of Senate to liquidate various judgment debts incurred by the federal government
in the sum of USD 566,754,000, British pound 98,526,000 and 226,201,801,881 naira 64 kobo.
Senate passed 3 bills on science and technology, the National Innovation Agency establishment, Nigeria Atomic Energy Commission repeal and reenactment bill, and the Nigerian Content in Programs, Contract, Science, Engineering, Technology and Innovation Establishment Bill. It also passed the Federal Audit Report Implementation and Enforcement Bill.
Mr. President, the objective of this bill, one, is to develop the ways and technical machinery for effectively exploit and harness atomic energy for peaceful applications for sustainable national development.
On our Public Accounts Committee resolutions or recommendations, implementable and must be mandatorily implemented.
The National Emergency Management Agency Act Amendment Bill, which seeks to provide for the establishment of NSAS Victim Compensation Fund, sponsored by Senator Gaston Bassi, passed second reading.
For the compensation of verified victims of the 2020 NSAS protests.
Senate continued legislative intervention on education as it passed two higher institutions establishment bills. The Federal University of Technology, Sabon Birni in Sokoto State, and the Federal University of Creative Arts and Studies in Idato South Local Government Area of Imo State. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
And that's the news on NTA International. Thanks for being part of it. I am Charles Alpha. My sign language interpreter has been Franklin Ife. Thanks for watching.